Welcome to the session on understanding innovation. In this session, we are going to see what is innovation really about, and more fundamentally, why we need to innovate. And this will set the stage for us to understand design thinking better. So let's see what is innovation. Innovation comes from the Latin word innovare, which means renew. And if you see the root word for this, it is novus, which means new, renew, or change. So you see that change is at the core of innovation. We live in a world where changes are happening at a very fast pace. Whether it is individual or organization, embracing change is important. Change always involves something new, which is about innovation, and design thinking is a wonderful framework to innovate or to improvise. Let's see what Darwin has said. It's not the strongest of the species, not the most intelligent that really survives. It is really the one that is most adaptable to change. This doesn't apply to species or to human beings. This very well applies to organizations also. Let's keep this in mind as we go about understanding innovation. Innovation, as we just saw, is novel. At the same time, it's also about a powerful one. It's not just an idea, because an idea needs to be converted into something tangible for the customer, right? Something they feel. Certain things are felt physically, certain things are not felt physically, right? But it is important that we turn the idea into a solution. A great idea that is executed brilliantly is very important, because otherwise the idea will remain in the drawing board. So, what is innovation? What are the components of innovation, if you ask? One thing is about creativity, right? You tap into the creative aspect of the organization, of human beings, and more importantly, the action. You need to implement the creativity, because organizations exist to satisfy the needs of the customer, and the organizations and the customers want value. So anything that you implement, any creative solution that you implement, it must add value to customers. So that's very, very important. So let's keep in mind that innovation is as much about creativity as it is about action, which is the process of implement. Right? So having seen what is innovation, let's understand why we need to innovate. At its core, innovation involves change. We saw that, right? And we are living in a VUCA world. What is VUCA? We live in a volatile world. Uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity are there. Customers expect organizations to manage these things for them, right? They want solutions that can make their lives simpler and easier. So, a VUCA world offers opportunities. At the same time, it's also a challenge for the organization. The current pandemic has opened up a plethora of opportunities for organization. The level of digitization is at its maximum. Though there is a slowdown, it has given opportunities for organizations to take a step back, right, from the mad race and from a everyday crisis management world. So it's given really an opportunity to relook at things, right? So how many of us are really making use of this opportunity? That is something for us to reflect and ponder. But let's understand we are living in a highly uncertain and volatile environment. It's up to us to be prepared for the change, to embrace the change, to offer something to customers who feel there is a value in the offering, right? So let's keep this in mind as we pursue innovation and try improvising our offerings. As we talk about VUCA world, let's take a step back to understand the extent of change that's sweeping, the industrial world. If you see, we are now in the midst of what is called as Industry 4.0, which is, when I say Industry 4.0, I'm referring to the Industrial Revolution. The end of 18th century, we had mechanization, steam power, and weaving loom. Before that, it was bullock cart, right? Industry 2.0 is about mass production, assembly line, right? The concept of 3 shifts, 8 hour per shift, 5 day work week, all of that happened in Industry 4.0. Electrical energy, right? That also came about in the beginning of the 20th century. Then we had Industry 3.0, which is all about computers, the first level of automation in factories, right? The Moore's law, right, that was postulated in the early 70s, right, by Gordon Moore, who is the co-founder of Intel. The number of transistors in an integrated circuit in a computer will double, almost every 2 years, right? And that law is holding true even after 50 years, right? So faster computers, connected systems is what we have in Industry 4.0, right? Cyber physical systems, missionaries are talking to each other, right? Networks are talking to each other, Internet of Things, analytics, very high level of automation, the concept of dark factories, where the automation is at its highest level. All these things are happening in Industry 4.0. So you can understand the extent of change that is sweeping our world, right? Remember, I mentioned before Industry 1.0, it was all about bullock cart. What happened to the bullock cart? Some people felt at the time, right, that nobody would need cars. The same thing was said about computers. I know in some countries, in some places, people burnt computers, saying that it's going to take away jobs. Yes, it took away some jobs, but new jobs are created. What they say is the jobs of the future have not been created now. It's going to be created in future. That's the kind of volatile and change-filled environment that we are in. As I mentioned, the pace of change has been accelerating, and this COVID pandemic at many levels has accelerated the extent of digitization that is happening in the organization. That is presenting new opportunities for individuals and for organizations. Either you embrace change or you're left out, right? So if you really see the companies, the biggest companies of the earlier eras, if you see the Industry 1.0 and 2.0, are really US Steel, General Motors, ExxonMobil, right? They're still around, right? But their market cap is not, in the top 1 or 2 or 3, right? If you see Industry 3.0, it was dominated by the likes of IBM. Industry 4.0 is Apple, right? Apple is the company with the highest market capitalization currently. And the company with the highest market capitalization in the early part of the 21st century was US Steel. Where is US Steel now? Still around, but with a much lower market capitalization. So you can see the change that is sweeping our world, right? Remember about Polaroid? It was a top company. In fact, it was in the one amongst the top 10 companies by market capitalization, in the 70s and even 80s. Where is it now? It doesn't exist. That's because, customers have moved on to newer technology. Polaroid was not ready, was not prepared for the onslaught of digital technology, right? So that's how change has been happening. If you see the case of Polaroid, they may be thinking, in the 80s, 90s, they may be thinking about how to improvise their services, how to better their offerings with respect to the competition, the current competition there, right? They did not see the change in the macro environment. So they perished. So change is happening at a much faster pace. it's important for organization to make use of this opportunity to be prepared for the change. Because if you look at the USA environment, only 61 companies figure in the Fortune 500 listing of the year 1955 and 2015. That is just about, a little more than 10%, right? So there is a creative destruction that is happening. What happened to the rest of the companies? They went burst, or they got taken over by another company. Okay. The other companies don't exist now. So the average tenure is only about 18 years. It used to be about 30 years or so, some 50 years back. The average tenure of an organization in the Fortune 500 listing is only about 18 years. Closer home, in India, only 7 companies figure in the Sensex. Sensex is the top 30 listed companies of Bombay Stock Exchange, right? Only 7 companies figure in the Sensex during 86 to 2020, right? So you can see the level of churn that's happening. Okay, and the composition of top 30 companies has also undergone a drastic change. Now we have banking, technology, telecom, and other companies, right? Compared to manufacturing and other types of companies then, right? Because India is a country which is dominated, because the Indian business environment is dominated by family-owned companies. Okay, so even in such a scenario, many of the companies are not part of the top 30 list. So you can understand the change, right? So change is happening all around us. The pace of change is increasing significantly. So it is important, not just organizations, but even individuals, to be prepared for the change, right? Which essentially means you need to innovate, right? You need to innovate on a process, you need to innovate on a product, right? You can't be fixated on your current competition. Tomorrow, a new technology, a totally new product may come, which can make your which can make your existence questionable, right? Let's embrace change. So, having seen why we need to innovate, let's understand the different types of innovation, right? Can be a product, physical product, or a product like a software product, right? Because you can't touch and feel a software product, right? You can innovate on that. Can be a process. Say you are offering, you could be a service provider. It's taking, let's say, 45 minutes to deliver food. Can you reduce it to 30 minutes or 15 minutes? It will call for process enhancements. It will call for innovating on process. Can be a business model change, right? COVID, right? As we mentioned, it has accelerated the level of digitization. You can introduce a new business model adopting the digital framework. So that offers an opportunity, right? You have to innovate, otherwise you will be lost. Lastly, experience. Can you innovate on experience? Because customers look for enhanced experience, right? At the same time, a simple experience. So there are 4 ways, right? 4 types of innovation that I really see, right? One can adopt the design thinking framework for any one of this, product, process, business model, and as you innovate, keep these customer requirements in mind, because customers on any day want better product, quality product at a lower price, great customer experience, and hassle-free, right? Why I'm saying is, in the name of innovation or improvisation, don't make lives difficult for the customers, right? Customers don't want pain. They are not paying to experience pain. Because many times software upgrades happen and they make lives difficult for the customer, right? You end up feeling that the previous version of the software product was so much better. You don't want such a scenario, right? So please keep this in mind as you go about innovation. Lastly, I want to share this perspective on left brain versus right brain. If you see, organizations are typically more focused on left brain, right? More number driven, right? The focus on innovation is relatively lower in most organizations, right? But if you look at organizations, companies that have survived over the long haul, they are companies that are focused on innovation also. Remember the examples I shared on the companies, the top companies that have existed over a 50-year time period, right? The US scenario and the Indian scenario examples I gave. If you really see, the companies that have survived are companies that have embraced change and the companies that have innovated, right? So what I'm proposing is a blend of left brain and right brain approaches. It's not like one is better than the other, right? Organizations are focused more on left brain approaches, right? They haven't given adequate importance to right brain approaches like innovation. So go ahead and correct that imbalance. Blend the two, right? If you blend the two, your organization can really succeed and be for a long haul. So that's what I wanted to cover in this session.